You're fine.
Kind of talk about what we had started talking about earlier, and that was when we had talked on the phone. Dubisson Funeral Home was one of the two funeral homes that received the remains of the boys after the fire in 1959. And things were a little different then as far as the process, but tell us a little bit about Dubisson, how your family came into ownership, and kind of back up from when you came on board.
Certainly. Dubisson Incorporated many, many years ago. The founder, Daniel Dubisson, started the company. He and Ferd Goodrich started the company in 1915. Initially, the funeral home was located down on 9th Street. Well, actually, it moved several times. Prior to its present location, it was at 9th and Gaines, and left there in the 60s when the interstate was coming in, I-630. They relocated to its present site at 18th and Marshall Street. Actually Wright Avenue and Marshall Street. My family made the acquisition in 1986 from the surviving Dubisson heir, Geraldine Dubisson Lee, who lived in Illinois. So we made the acquisition in '86. I relocated to Little Rock in 1987 and have been here ever since. In regard to the project that you're working on, well, we had gone into, or I had gone into our record archive with the list that you provided of those individuals, those 21 individuals who perished in that disaster, and compared the list with our records and found out that 15 of the 21 individuals, either at some point Dubisson had some involvement. Now, that was either where Dubisson made the removal of the remains from the site of death to the funeral home, and possibly another funeral home assumed the actual funeralizing and interment thereof. If that happened, then perhaps a funeral home in another city may have picked up the remains from Dubisson and had a funeral service and perhaps interment in that city. But most of the individuals Dubisson had a hand on, and either as I mentioned, made the removal and or did the whole service from start to finish.
Very good. Tell us about this compilation here that is entitled African American Funeral Homes, and how this project came about.
This was a project that was done by the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, the Arkansas chapter, of which Tamala Tenpenny Lewis and Sharon Phillips were the, I guess the hands-on, or I shouldn't say hands-on, but were the charges that handled this. What they did was they came into the firm and went through our office copies of death records. We have records dating back from 1925 forward. So with that information, And let me just kind of clarify, an office copy of a death record would be something that an office employee would have handwritten for office bookkeeping restoration. And that handwritten copy, or from the handwritten copy, an actual original death certificate would have generated from that. Most of the time that information would have been typed in or handwritten, and then that would have been filed with the state, the Arkansas Department of Health, Vital Records Division. That document would have been filed with them. The office copy that we would have had, or that we have, had the information that we obtained from the next of kin. And if there was any blank item that was left off of our copy, it was only because we weren't provided that information, or another funeral home became involved and made the actual perform the actual service and interment.
Okay. Let me ask you, according to today's requirements, if those same circumstances existed, fire occurred, loss of life, what would be done differently in as far as what an ambulance would have done with the skeletal or the charred remains, like in the case of the Wrightsville 21?
Today, the process involved is such that if a death occurs, as was as appeared here, or as happened here, then the coroner becomes involved. The coroner is called to the scene, and the remains are transferred from the site to the medical examiner's office. A autopsy is performed, and the coroner, together with the medical examiner, there's an investigation done, and a cause of death is then put on the death certificate, or annotated on the death certificate, if if it's ascertainable as to what was the actual cause of death. Now, I say that because sometimes in an investigation there may be some forensics, some studies, some tissue sample studies, some tissue sample